Hello, family, and welcome to another episode of Role Model Experts Cafe. I'm your host, Dr. L, the Parent Whisperer, and today with me, I have a very special guest. Her name is Miss Talia Dashow. Did I say that correctly, Talia?
Yes, thanks.
Fantastic. Very cool. Now, I had an opportunity to speak to Talia, and we are collaborating on some stuff. And in the process, I heard about her story, and I really enjoyed and loved how she shows up in the world and where she's coming from. So I decided to invite her to our cafe and have our brief chat, basically. By the way, guys, thank you for joining us today. And if you haven't already done so, go ahead, click subscribe so you get notified of the latest experts who show up on the event. They often have gems of advice and tips and tricks, as well as sometimes gifts and secret stuff that you can connect with them and benefit from. So please go ahead and click subscribe. Talia, welcome to the show. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here with us today. Tell our audience members a little bit more about what we were talking about how you got started in this, why do you think this is an important topic to do, and how you're helping people these days.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on. Appreciate that. So I help people with procrastination, and I do it because I have procrastinated all my life. All my life. When I was in college, I remember I would procrastinate on cleaning my apartment until something worse came along. So when it was time to study for finals, my apartment finally got clean.
I know how that works.
Yeah, right. So I had to really try to learn how to cope with this procrastination. It was not serving me to keep doing that. But I did a lot of research and I kept finding things that really didn't work for me. I found advice like break down a big project into smaller steps. Great. Now I have a list of smaller steps that I'm still not starting on. That was great. Or advice like just do it. Anyone can do this. Well, what does that mean about me if I can't? Like, how broken must I be if I can't even do this thing that everybody can do? Right. So I had to actually go inside and do some of the inner work to be able to figure out how, what was stopping me, why I was so knotted up. You know how when you have like a knot in a string, I don't know if this has happened to you, but I had a knot in my drawstring when I really had to go to the bathroom, and I was like yanking on it, and it was just getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And this was a little traumatic for me. So I remember it really, but if you loosen up the drawstring, then everything comes apart and you can finally use the bathroom. But it was, it's like, so often when we get stuck, we just yank on it. Like, I'm just going to force myself to do this thing. I'm going to make myself do this other thing. And we yank on it and it just gets tighter and tighter and tighter. Mm-hmm. So I come in and I help people figure out how to loosen it up. Like go in with the things that I've had to learn for myself about how to loosen things up for myself and how to make more space so that I can act. So I avoid the big pitfalls of procrastination.
Got it. Yes, I clearly remember this was the night before an organic chemistry exam or something like that. And I was just like, couldn't sit myself down to start studying. And I was like counting the hours left of the exam. Like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just sit down and do this thing? And like you said, yeah, you naturally think, what's wrong with me? And it affects your self-confidence that there's an issue that you can't take charge of basically in your life. So absolutely. And this is something that not only can affect you, but affects those around you who might be depending on you. And of course, being in role model maker, one of the big concerns that I always have is what kind of a role model am I being to my children? Because that's the working model that you're teaching them. And, later on, they might go through therapy or whatever they need to kind of figure out their own system and their own model that works for them. But that's the model that you're giving them as the workable model. So yeah, it is really important to address this, and its implications can be felt everywhere from career to relationships and all kinds of other things, right? So in this particular case, you mentioned people forcing their way through this. And I definitely can see that that would be one of the challenges. But what are some of the other challenges that you find out people come to you struggling with procrastination that they bring up?
One thing I hear all the time is, I know what I need to do. I just need to make myself do it. That's a really common refrain.
Right.
And a lot of times it's people don't know what's like, it just, I'm not getting stuff done and I'm not sure why. And over time, I've started to see that procrastination seems to fall under three major umbrellas. Like there's, and of course, everybody has their own idiosyncratic versions of this. I'm not saying that everybody's going to fit exactly with this, but in general, it seems like perfectionism, resistance, and overwhelm are the three major umbrellas that procrastination falls under. And so depending which one is the one that is up most for somebody, it can affect how it shows up in their lives, what it looks like.
Now, as a person who has had ADHD all my life, I want to naturally ask you, is this something that affects a certain population more than others as far as age group and things like that?
Not that I have figured out yet.
Okay. So the techniques could be applied to younger people just as much as older people for
I think so. I think it takes a certain amount of self-awareness. And so I think some of that comes with age, that younger people are going to have a little more trouble being able to look at themselves because they're still developing themselves.
Right. Exactly.
The brain isn't ready to start doing that introspection yet.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, up until the age of 6, the frontal part of your brain is not even developed to focus and prioritize anyway. So this is a mute point to begin with.
Right.
So absolutely. All right. So given that, now people come to you, they say, this is what's happening in my life, that I'm not getting things done, or I see that I'm a procrastinator and I put things off the last minute, or, you know, what you basically describe. But in order to change, these are lifelong habits that people have developed. So naturally, something has to change. So what are some of the challenges that you see as people embark on this adventure of no longer procrastinating?
Well, I really feel like it's, even though there are some things that are really common among different people, it also turns out to be a fairly personal journey. And so the reason, so, you know, perfectionism might look like not getting started on a project or not being willing to finish it because it's not perfect and you don't want to relinquish it yet because it's not there yet, or feeling like you need to get another degree before you can start a thing because you can't possibly be qualified yet. When you look at it inside, what's going on for each person may be slightly different. You know, it could be a feeling of, I never felt like I was good enough for my parents, and so I need to, you know, prove myself and, you know, be perfect in the world. Or it could be something that's more work related. I want to prove this to my boss, and I'm afraid that if I don't do this perfectly, I'm going to get fired. And, you know, there's usually a fear behind it. There's usually a fear, and there's usually a little voice in our heads that keeps repeating that fear, which I call that our gremlin voice. And I like to name the gremlin. Like, it doesn't work for everyone, but I call my gremlin Cruella de Vil. And I encourage people to name that gremlin voice because it helps to distinguish between that and the voice of guidance that can really help you move forward. So this is one of the tools that I give to my clients to say, is this your gremlin voice talking to you, or is this something that really feels true and aligned? And maybe don't give quite as much credence to that gremlin voice. You know, usually the gremlin voice is there to protect you. And so figuring out what it's trying to protect you from can be helpful, but then thank it, reassure it. I've got this. Thank you for letting me know about this hazard. I'll take it from here. And then you can let that voice go and move forward with a lot more confidence.
Got it. Beautiful. All right. So that's huge, because just getting somebody to the negotiating table in the first place is difficult. So this is something that you can do on your own to kind of get you moving in the right direction. And of course, building momentum is a big part of it too. Many tasks that are in front of us look monstrously big, and once you start tackling it, you realize it's not as big, right? So what are some other tips and tricks that you may suggest for audience members to utilize?
Sure. One of the things that I do in my life is run Creativity Club. So it's a place where people can get together and play creativity games online. Mm-hmm. And it's been really interesting because it helps people move away from the perfectionism point of view that it has to be perfect before you start.
Right.
By just creating imperfect things over and over and over again, and that's the point. And you can't do it wrong. And there isn't really a way to be like it is by definition going to be imperfect, but that is also perfect. So it really helps people exercise that muscle of let me try something and see what happens, rather than getting frozen into it has to be perfect before I start. So right. I highly recommend being creative on a regular basis as a way to help keep yourself out of that perfectionism space.
Right. So one of the things, of course, especially when it comes to actually, whether it's business or family life, I think the same thing. When you're talking about perfectionism, there is this part about the fact that I'm the one that can get this thing done. And if I don't do it, it doesn't get done, or it doesn't get done right. So do you have any clues as far as how to address that? Because I believe that for any family to be operational or for a business to grow, ultimately you need that level of being able to let go and understand that it's not going to be perfect, or it doesn't have to be perfect, right?
Right. This is the part where I try to encourage people to forgive themselves for being human and to forgive each other for being human, because all of us are imperfect beings and none of us are going to do everything perfectly, and to just accept that sometimes things aren't going to look exactly the way you wish they would look, because people are flawed human beings. And the more compassion that we can have for ourselves around that, rather than resentment and anger, the smoother things go.
Got it. All right. So this is kind of coming from my neurology background. So we have people who can focus on one thing, but then they get so fixated on it that they can't shift their focus on something that might actually be more pressing and more important. So there's that group of people. And then by the same token, we have people who are focused with such a long list of stuff that they never get to clear their schedule enough to allow time for one project, to sit down and actually get one project done. And it keeps getting put off. Do you have different approaches for this, or how do you recommend these two different types of people to approach the tasks that really need attention and need to get done?
It's an interesting question. I'm still trying to figure out how to shift that monofocus, because my own kid is very much falls into that category. Right. And all I can tell you at this point is what works for them, and not, yeah. I don't know if I can generalize that yet to be more available to other people, but it seems like having a structure and a lot of warnings about when it's time to change is helpful. Anything abrupt becomes very upsetting. But having a chance to, okay, it's 10 minutes, okay, it's 5 minutes, okay, now it's time. It seems to help.
Oh, actually, that is very useful. That's very helpful, because to me, what you just described is a form of support without really getting other people involved, but knowing that, hey, you've got this grid or this schedule, this structure that lets you know when you're supposed to begin or how much more time you have to put on it and when to shift focus. So that's definitely very helpful. Thank you for that. Awesome. So Talia, I know that you've got tons of little tips and tricks. Tell us a little bit more about how our audience members can benefit more by contacting you and connecting with you. What are some ways that they can reach out to you?
Absolutely. If you go to subscribepage.com/Talia, that's Talia, I have a free gift there. I believe there's two things available. There's a checklist to help you go from listening to your inner gremlins to listening to your inner guidance. And I also have a couple of creativity games that you can download and play on your own. So that is that available there. I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn. Should I tell you the links out loud or just leave them in the show notes?
I will actually go ahead and put them in the description box for our audience members to use it. But if you want to just talk about the title of it so that they know what it is, that would be great.
Sure. My Facebook business page is called Talia Dashow Coaching. And I also have a Facebook group where we play creativity games, but not all at the same time, like we do at Creativity Club. And that group is called Creativity as a Spiritual Practice. And that's a fun place to try out some things and see what kind of games we play. I'm on LinkedIn as Talia Dashow as well. And then every Thursday, 4 to 5 Pacific, I run Creativity Club. And you're welcome to drop in and just try it one time. There's no cost. You don't have to sign up in advance. It's drop in whenever you're available. And the Zoom link for that is going to be in the notes as well. And it would just be a lot of fun to get to play with you all.
You know, Talia, when we talk about the stuff that we've been talking about, I'm like, creativity is a much more fun way to go about it. I love creating things, but I hate lists. So that's a beautiful way of actually getting people who might know that they have a problem with getting things done to actually go ahead and get started and get things done. So thank you so much for offering that. I appreciate it.
I do have a few, usually maybe 1 or 2 slots a week available to do an hour-long session to break free from procrastination to see if we're a good fit to work together. So I give some good value during that. People leave with something helpful. There's no pressure. There's no requirement to work with me afterwards, but if you think it might be interesting, you can check me out for a bit first before you make any kind of commitments.
Awesome. That's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. So guys, definitely check the description box. I'm going to have all of the information from Talia put in there. And I encourage you to take her up on the offer. It's going to make your life easier. It's going to be fun. And she's an amazing lady to work with as well. So I definitely enjoy that. And Talia, once again, thank you for being here and giving of your expertise and your time for us. Do you have any parting words before we finish our session today?
I would say, give something a try. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just see what happens. You can always change it along the way if it's not going the way you like.
That takes the pressure off. That's
awesome.
Does. Yes. For those people that are overwhelmed, that's a huge permission you got to give yourself. So thank you. I appreciate it. All right. So don't forget, click the subscribe, check the description box, and we hope to see you on future episodes. Cheers.